On the day I went to pick up the wedding rings, I discovered that there were 2 rings I had ordered. One was mine, and the other was for Alex Chung, the male college student that my girlfriend was supporting. I took the rings to confront her, but I overheard her on a phone call. She said, "Please help me buy a car for Alex in your name, and don't let Jason Liu find out." I couldn't hear the response from the other end. She whispered, "I love him. I can't give up Alex." Later, I completely let go of her and accepted them as a couple. Seeing these 2 identical wedding rings brought a sharp pain to my heart. I designed this ring myself. The inner band is engraved with the date we met and our names, while the other ring's inner band bears their names and the date they met. It also has our love declaration inscribed. Love each other and stay together, never to part. I think this is very special and unique for us. But I didn't expect that in the end. I became a fool. Those 8 short words transformed from a sweet declaration into evidence of a joke. I smiled wryly as I returned their rings. When I turned to leave, I threw my own ring into the trash can and walked out with mixed feelings. Stepping out of the jewelry store, a gentle breeze brushed by, and my mind gradually became clearer. I was just about to call Emily Lin to question her about the ring, when I suddenly noticed a message she had sent 3 minutes earlier. She was waiting for me at a nearby Chinese restaurant. I glanced at the address and began to walk in that direction. Along the way, I felt uneasy, contemplating how to confront her. When we arrived at our destination and followed the waiter inside, I saw Emily standing by the window with her back to me, talking on the phone. Her voice was low as she said, "Can you buy a car for Alex in your name? Don't let Jason find out." I had no choice. I gave Jason a car for his birthday last month, so he naturally needs to have one too. Hearing this, I felt a sudden emptiness in my heart. It turns out, their relationship was not simple at all. So what am I? I looked at that familiar figure and suddenly felt a sense of strangeness. It seemed like there was something being said on the other end of the phone. She said helplessly, "I love him. I can't possibly give up Alex." Those words were like a bucket of cold water, instantly dousing the turmoil in my heart and bringing me back to calm. Since she loves Alex so much, I might as well support her. With that thought, I calmed my emotions and knocked on the door. Hearing the sound, she immediately hung up the phone and turned to look at me. When Emily saw me standing at the door, a hint of panic flashed in her eyes, and she asked, "When did you arrive?" I smiled and said, "I just got here." "Who are you on the phone with?" She stared at me, observing my expression, and she saw that I showed no change in emotions. She relaxed a little. Then she walked over, pulled out the nearest chair, and sat down. The company called to remind me that there's a meeting this afternoon, so I need to head back earlier. I nodded and didn't call her excuse into question. "Well, let's get the food served. After we finish eating, you can leave early." She called the waiter to serve the dishes and turned to ask me, "How's the ring? Are you satisfied with it?" I smiled and nodded nonchalantly. "It's pretty nice." But inwardly, I was somewhat surprised that my custom-designed ring had an identical one. I didn't say much more. Emily's expression seemed a bit off. It looked like there was a problem. I decided to go take a look in the afternoon. I didn't say anything about it, but inside, I felt indifferent. She stared at me intently, as if wondering why I was so silent today. Normally, when we are together, I do most of the talking. I enjoy sharing interesting things with her, often chatting away in her ear. At first, she was quite patient and would occasionally respond to me. However, ever since Alex graduated from high school and came here, she began to grow impatient. Sometimes, before I even finished speaking, she would deliberately change the subject or interrupt me, telling me that boys needed to be more mature and quieter. In the past, when she said this, I would always show my anger, but she never tried to comfort me. She just let me vent my emotions on my own. Looking back now, I realize how foolish I was at that time. Her change in attitude was so obvious. How did I not notice it sooner? Emily and I are each other's first love. We have known each other since kindergarten. Our parents have always liked each other, and our families have a similar background. Therefore, when we were young, our parents arranged a betrothal for us. Emily and I have always believed that we would get married, so we both tried to minimize our interactions with the opposite sex. The appearance of Alex was unexpected, and I proposed to support him. It all began the first time I met him. He was smaller than his peers, with a somewhat timid expression, but he was very intelligent when it came to his studies. I didn't want to see him buried in the mountains. I wanted to support him and help him break free. However, my family is very strict, and the living expenses are limited. Emily is very much pampered at home and gets whatever she wants. So, I asked her to help me support this poor boy. At first, Emily was reluctant. She said she didn't have time to play these games. Later, I unexpectedly had a serious car accident and fell into a coma for a long time. She sought help from many people, thought of various ways, and kept watch over me day and night. Later, she heard that doing good deeds could accumulate virtue, so she decided to support Alex, who was born into a poor family. Before long, I was out of danger. She jokingly said that Alex was my benefactor and urged me to treat him well. As a result, I treated him like my own brother and shared everything with him. Unexpectedly, this brought trouble and put me in a risky situation. Thinking of this, I lost my appetite and hastily took a few bites before putting down my chopsticks. Emily noticed and asked if the food didn't suit my taste. Glancing at the dishes on the table, I saw that many of them contained chili, and spicy food is what I dislike the most. She realized this and apologized, saying, "I forgot you can't eat spicy food." Just as I was about to bring up the topic of our breakup, a familiar voice came from the door. Emily and Alex, wearing white shirts, pushed the door open with smiles. When he saw me, there was a moment of surprise on his face, but he quickly smiled again, as if Jason was also present. His smile for me was much more subdued than the one he had for Emily. A closer look revealed a hint of insincerity and jealousy in his expression. I glanced at him without saying a word. Emily frowned and joked, "Aren't you used to knocking before coming in yet?" There was more of a sense of helplessness in her tone. Alex smiled shyly and said, "Sorry, I forgot for a moment. I'll be more careful next time. Jason, can I join you guys for dinner? I just finished playing basketball, and I'm really hungry." Although he was speaking to me, his gaze remained fixed on Emily. Without waiting for my response, she said, "If you're hungry, come and eat. If there's anything else you want, we can order some more." Alex took the opportunity to sit down on her right side and smiled as he replied, "No need. I like everything you've ordered." Emily paused for a moment when she heard this, unconsciously glancing at me. I kept my expression neutral and remained calm. "If you like it, then eat more," I said. Gradually, her expression relaxed, but there was a hint of curiosity in her eyes. "Jason, just tell me what you want to eat." Emily handed me the menu, but I smiled and declined. I had just seen something that made me quite uncomfortable, and I wasn't feeling very hungry now. She frowned slightly and asked what I had seen. I pretended to be nonchalant as I said, "It's just about my friend. His girlfriend cheated on him and has another lover. They were caught on camera doing some unspeakable things at his place, and it made me feel nauseous. People who betray love really deserve to be punished, don't you think, Emily?" I smiled, but Emily's expression was quite grim. We paused for a moment before agreeing, yeah. Alex forced a smile on his face. "Jason, relationships are complicated. Perhaps that girl hasn't liked your friend for a long time. She just found it difficult to say so. What you're saying isn't entirely fair. If there aren't any feelings, why not end the relationship early and find someone new? Alex, you're still young and don't understand how complicated people's thoughts are nowadays. If you truly like someone, you should give them a proper label, rather than keeping them as a secret affair. Her actions are actually just bringing trouble upon herself." I spoke frankly, and Alex's face turned quite pale, a hint of guilt flickering in his eyes. I couldn't help but sneer internally. Emily also looked displeased and interrupted me, saying, "This is none of your business." I replied with a smile, "I believe you're not the kind of person who would say that." Emily, leaving her at a loss for words. Until the event ended, Alex didn't look at me again. Emily offered to give me a ride home, but I declined. She suggested that she could take Alex back to school instead, and reminded me to be safe. I insisted that it wasn't necessary and that she should go home with Jason. I could take a taxi back. Alex smiled shyly, appearing quite cautious when he heard me say that. It's no longer as relaxed as it was at the beginning. Perhaps he's worried that I'll discover their secret relationship. If I find out, I might stop supporting him financially. He doesn't want to let go of Emily, nor does he want to lose my backing. He wants to have it all. Before I had a chance to refuse, Emily coldly said, with a hint of pressure in her voice, "Jason has a car and can take himself home, but you have a class in the afternoon. Get in the car. I'll give you a ride." Alex seemed a bit awkward and glanced at me before naturally opening the passenger door. I decided not to be too polite. He rolled down the window and waved at me, saying, "Goodbye, Jason. Please be careful on the road." I watched them leave, and my mood gradually became heavier. Although I felt a sense of relief just now, my heart was really heavy. I have known Emily for 20 years, and I never expected her to show such negative traits commonly associated with women. Has she been hiding it so well that I never noticed? After a self-deprecating smile, I went home. In the evening, Emily came back very late, reeking of alcohol. I was lying on the sofa watching TV when I saw her come back. I just casually picked up the remote and changed the channel. Emily wobbled over, taking off her white suit jacket. She walked up to the sofa and tossed me a delicate gift box. "This is a new watch that just came out. I had someone get it ready for you. See if you like it," she said. She was a bit tipsy and tried to embrace me. I didn't respond, skillfully avoiding the topic, and picked up a cup of water from the coffee table to drink. She felt disappointed and looked at me in shock. "You smell too much like alcohol. You should go take a shower first," Emily said. She lowered her head, silently stood up, and took her pajamas to the bathroom. Feeling bored, I opened the gift box and discovered a refreshing sports watch for men. "This watch is very suitable for young men." I pressed my lips together and put the bag back in its place. Then I opened my phone to watch some videos, and happened to come across an account that looked somewhat familiar. I paused for a moment before clicking in to take a look. The content shared by this vlogger consists of his daily life, and each cover title reads, "Day X of being supported by a rich woman." Others didn't appear on camera, but the background looked very familiar. When Alex started his freshman year, I went to his school to give a speech, and the principal even took us on a tour of the school and the dorms. The background in the video was exactly the same as his dorm room. Upon further examination, I noticed that in a few videos, the background was not in the dorm but in our current home. She brought him home without my knowledge. My fingers trembled as I continued to browse through the video. Upon closer inspection, I noticed something troubling. The suit he was wearing in the video, the men's skincare products he used, his watch, and his cufflinks were all identical to mine. And all of these items were purchased for me by Emily. I felt a surge of panic and quickly rushed into the wardrobe. I compared the video with my belongings and noticed the time it was posted. This made me realize that the things Emily bought were identical to what was given to Alex, and they were given at the same time. Just like before, what I had, he had as well. With this thought, I suddenly felt a wave of nausea. I laughed, but tears began to flow uncontrollably. At this moment, my sincere feelings have turned into a joke. I cannot understand why she would treat me this way. She no longer loves me. Then let's break up. Why make me feel so uncomfortable? I clenched my fists, trying to suppress the anger inside me. I took out my phone and captured everything in front of me, saving the video that Alex had sent. My relationship with Emily isn't solely based on affection. It involves the interests of two companies and the connections of the previous generation, making separation difficult. However, with Alex's video, things became a lot simpler. After a while, I calmed myself down and walked out of the room. Emily was hurriedly changing her clothes when she saw me come out and anxiously said that Alex had gotten into a fight at school and she needed to handle it. This was not a discussion, it was a notification. I looked at her coldly and said, "Emily, if you walk out that door today, we'll break up." She paused for a moment, a flicker of anger flashing in her eyes. "Jason, what do you mean by that? Did I not make myself clear enough?" Emily laughed angrily and looked at me coldly. "Stop it. I have something very important to do right now. We'll talk when I get back." She slammed the door on her way out, not waiting for my response. She didn't realize that what I said was not a plea for her to stay, but rather a wager. However, I clearly lost. As soon as she left, I began packing my bags and took everything she had given me with me. I organized the evidence of Emily's infidelity and directly shared it in our family group chat. Our family has a good relationship with Emily's parents, and there is a shared group that includes many people. After I finished packing, I drove home, and after washing up, I sent out the evidence. There are quite a few night owls in the group, and my message caused a stir. I ignored their questions and directly told everyone that I had broken up with Emily and that the wedding was canceled. Shortly after, Emily sent me a private message saying, "Jason, you retracted the message. Stop making a scene." I didn't reply to her and instead blocked her. Shortly after, Alex sent me a message saying that he and Emily were truly in love and that if I had any complaints, I should go to him and not hurt her. I didn't respond. Instead, I took a screenshot of his message and sent it to the group chat. Since they didn't care about their reputation, I saw no reason to consider their feelings any longer. Once I sent the screenshot, my parents, who were traveling, started calling me to ask what had happened. I didn't hide anything and told them everything that had transpired. My mom was so angry that she immediately bought a plane ticket, wanting to come back to talk to me. I actually thought it wasn't necessary and was about to persuade her not to return. Emily's mom sent me a message saying, "Jason, come over for dinner at my house tomorrow. Emily will give you a reasonable explanation." I didn't really want to go, but she mentioned that William Fu's grandfather wanted to meet me, so I didn't refuse. The next day, my assistant called me. "Mr. Liu, today is the time for fund allocation. How much living allowance should we give Alex this month?" I said, "You don't need to give him any more." I added that there was no need to provide him with living expenses anymore, as he has others to take care of him. Alex has changed greatly over the years. After starting college, he did not apply for any financial aid or consider part-time work. Instead, he has developed a taste for luxury goods and is always dressed in designer brands. In fact, I had long wanted to stop supporting him, but I hesitated because he has paralyzed parents and a brother with intellectual disabilities. However, it seems that he no longer needs my help, so why should I continue to make things difficult for myself? After finishing everything I needed to do, I returned to the company. Since graduating from college, my dad has gradually handed over the affairs of the company to me. Now that he is semi-retired, he is traveling with my mom. As a result, I've been spending a lot of time at work. At that moment, I rushed to the office, and just as I sat down, things began. Emily burst through the door, her face filled with anger, and coldly remarked, "Jason, do you know that you sent the screenshot to the group yesterday?" My grandfather was almost on the verge of a heart attack from anger. Her arrival didn't catch me by surprise. I maintained my expression, looking at her coldly, and interrupted, "What does this have to do with me? I was just stating the truth. As for who's right or wrong, think about it yourself. Is this my fault?" Emily was left speechless by my words, rubbing her temples as her attitude gradually softened. She said softly, "Jason, this is all a misunderstanding. I consider Alex as a brother. There's nothing romantic between us. When you go to my house today, please explain this clearly to them and don't drag him into it. Let's just pretend that what happened yesterday never occurred, and I'll proceed with the wedding as planned." Hearing this, I felt a wave of disgust. What kind of mentality does she have to say something like that? I looked at her with disgust and said, "Emily, do you really think I'm desperate for you? It's you who is unfaithful in this relationship. What right do you have to speak to me this way?" Emily tiredly pinched the bridge of her nose and replied in a calmer tone, "Jason, I know you're very angry right now, but please don't act impulsively. You also know that our families are closely tied in business and our parents are good friends. Because what happened between us might affect our family relationships, and that would not be worth the loss." Jason countered, "Then why didn't you think about how this could hurt our relationship when you were doing those things?" Emily replied, a bit agitated, "Yes, I made a mistake, but it was just an error on my part as a woman. I never thought this would threaten your position. You are the only one who can be my husband. Besides, can you guarantee that if you were with someone else, she would always be loyal to you? Jason, we are already adults, no longer children. You shouldn't always think so simply." After hearing her words, I almost laughed. Her gaze was icy, and her tone turned severe. I feel like you're just saying all this to ease your own guilt. In reality, you're just an ordinary selfish person. I really was blind back then, wasting so much time on you, and now I don't want to play along anymore. You can marry whoever you want. It has nothing to do with me. If you don't want to be laughed at, just leave on your own. Don't make me call security to escort you out. I have a tough disposition and won't tolerate any nonsense. When Emily saw that I wasn't budging, she angrily stormed off. In the afternoon, I arrived at the Lin family as agreed. As soon as I walked in, I saw Emily kneeling in the hall while Grandpa Lin sat on the sofa with a stern expression. I slowly approached and called out softly, "Grandpa Lin." When Grandpa Lin saw me, the seriousness on his face softened, and he said to me, "Jason, I know all about what has happened between you two. I called you here today to give you an explanation. Emily made a mistake, and she should be punished. You decide how you want to punish her." It was clear that he hoped the matter could be settled easily like this. If it were before, I would have gone along with him, but now things are different. I shook my head and said, "Grandpa, I broke up with Emily. This has nothing to do with me." As soon as I finished speaking, the atmosphere instantly became heavy. Emily's mother was pacing anxiously nearby, trying to say something multiple times, but was stopped by Grandpa's stern glare. "Jason, have you thought this through? Marriage is not a game. Once it's over, there's no turning back." After the old man finished speaking, Emily looked at me nervously. Before I could say anything, she hoarsely pleaded, "Jason, I will draw a clear line with him and won't contact him again. Can you forgive me this once?" Emily's mother quickly grabbed my hand and assured me, "Emily has recognized her mistake. Please give her a chance. If she makes the same mistake again, I won't let her off the hook." My mom had already called me on the way, asking me to be more conciliatory and to try not to let this issue affect the relationship between our two families. I took a deep breath and responded casually. After that, they invited me to stay for dinner, but I found an excuse to leave. Once I got home, I removed Emily's contact information from the blacklist and told her that I wouldn't be going to her house anymore and that she needed to clarify things with her family regarding the previous matters. I will maintain my original stance. We have broken up, so please do not come looking for me again. I usually have a busy work schedule and don't have time to waste on these matters. After sending the message, I blocked her and left the family group chat. I thought Emily wouldn't pester me, but I underestimated her. Next day, I overslept and rushed to the office, and on my way, I ran into her carrying a bag of breakfast. Emily was wearing a simple matching couple's casual outfit and walked towards me. As I got closer, I realized that she was wearing the outfit I had bought earlier. At that time, she thought it looked too childish and had never worn it. "What brings you here?" I asked. "I brought you breakfast. Have some. Don't starve yourself." Her tone was gentle, and her expression was natural, as if nothing had happened. I looked at her coldly and turned my head away in annoyance. "Emily, haven't I made myself clear enough? We broke up. Don't come looking for me anymore." "Jason, it shouldn't have come to this between us. I will do as I said and cut ties with Alex. From now on, I will only have you by my side." I shook my head in refusal, and seeing her stunned expression, I added, "I don't think it's very clean." After saying that, I bypassed her and quickly walked towards the parking area. When I saw her about to catch up with me, I immediately started my vehicle and drove off swiftly from the parking lot. It seemed like an unlucky day. As soon as I arrived at the company, I ran into Alex waiting for me at the entrance. I was filled with impatience and wanted to leave right away. He chased after me and shouted, "Jason, listen to me. I know that what Emily and I did has disappointed you, but I never wanted to hurt you. I've always considered you like my own brother, and this situation is hard for me too." I stopped in my tracks, turned back with a mocking smile and replied, "So, according to you, how low must your morals be to fall in love with a woman you should be calling your sister-in-law?" Alex's expression shifted, and he stared at me, seemingly contemplating how to respond. I glanced at him casually, but my gaze suddenly stopped. I finally understood why Emily wore that casual outfit, because Alex was wearing the same set as mine, and it was a couple style. Thinking of this, I just couldn't bring myself to smile. I had already ended things to make way for them. Why did they have to do this? Alex, do you feel wronged? No, Jason. If you have any opinions, just say them. I only hope this won't affect your friendship with Emily. I scoffed. You're really confident. Someone like you doesn't matter to me at all. Cheating is no different from domestic violence. The only difference is between 0 times and countless times. Emily couldn't resist the temptation this time and ended up with him. Next time, you'll be able to join others. To me, people without a moral compass are no different from worthless stones. Only someone like him would feel like they found a treasure. Alex listened, his face turning red, and said, Jason, I know you look down on someone like me from the countryside, but I have been working hard to change myself. I won't forget the help you gave me before. However, I really like Emily. To me, she is a priceless treasure. I hope you won't say such things about her in the future. His words were both absurd and amusing. I almost burst out laughing. You are desperately flaunting money given by others, and I really don't understand how you can have the audacity to criticize me using my own money. Alex's face turned red. My words stirred up his deep-seated insecurities, and for a moment, a flash of resentment crossed his eyes, but it quickly faded. Just as I was about to tell him not to waste my time, Emily suddenly appeared. She stood protectively in front of Alex, her beautiful face tense and showing some dissatisfaction with me. But she didn't say anything. Instead, she turned around to size him up. She quietly asked him, You weren't bullied, were you? Alex shook his head. I'm fine. I just came to talk to Jason. Emily, you don't need to worry. He won't do anything to me. Emily appeared to be skeptical and looked up at me, saying, Jason, let's keep our matters between us. If there's anything you want to discuss, I can talk to you. Seeing them shift responsibility onto each other, I couldn't help but smile wryly to myself, which also reminded me of the past. During her sophomore year, she gradually got involved in the company's operations and became extremely busy. As the only child, her family had high hopes for her, expecting her to take on the responsibilities of the Lin family. This put a lot of pressure on her, but she remained strong and rarely complained in front of me. Later on, as her academic pressure increased along with her work commitments, she would sometimes confide in me about her stress. I didn't want to put too much pressure on her, so I decided to help her relax. I took her out of class. That day, we completely unwound and spent the entire day at the beach. When we returned, however, both sets of parents caught us red-handed. Her dad was very angry and shouted that we were wasting time, so he asked us who came up with this idea. I was about to take the blame and say it was me when I saw her pointing at me, claiming it was Jason who took her out. The Lin family seemed a bit unhappy about that, but considering the relationship between the two families, they didn't hold it against me. I thought to myself that it was indeed my fault, so I didn't blame her for throwing me under the bus. Instead, I found her to be quite sincere. However, it seems now that she is not the kind of person I thought she was. She doesn't care about me and perhaps simply dislikes me. I smiled faintly and said coldly, I have nothing to discuss with you. It was him who approached me. I don't have time to waste, so please leave if there's nothing else. After I finished speaking, I didn't give them a chance to respond and quickly walked towards the elevator. As I entered the elevator, I unexpectedly glanced back at the spot where I had stood earlier, only to find that it was already empty. After retracting my gaze, I returned to my office, where my assistant handed me a project proposal for an amusement park. I had originally planned to collaborate with Emily, intending to surprise her before the wedding. However, I have now decided to abandon that idea. Each time we worked together, our earnings were minimal, as she took away most of the profits. Her aunt is returning to her home country, and she urgently needs to prove her capabilities. Otherwise, the board may not continue to support her. Since we've broken up, there's no need to think about her anymore. The partner for this project has changed. You can go ahead and share the news. Interested parties can come and negotiate. The assistant's eyes widened in surprise as he asked, Mr. Liu, weren't we supposed to collaborate with Lin Corporation? I replied that aside from the ongoing projects, I would no longer consider Lin Corporation in the future. Pursuing multiple paths is more meaningful than being limited to just one. The assistant hesitated for a moment and asked, But weren't you supposed to marry someone from the Lin family? I laughed and shook my head, saying, we broke up. These 5 simple words convey a lot of information. In the business world, relationships often develop into alliances or rivalries, and there are very few that turn into friendships. My assistant understood this. Okay, I'll arrange that right away. However, I just received a message from Mr. Chung. He asked if we forgot to transfer the funds. The assistant felt helpless when he said this. By blocking his phone number, we would no longer have any connection. Fine. Once everything was arranged, I started to focus on work. Alex should have some self-respect. He wouldn't directly ask Emily for money. He usually spends money frivolously and never thinks about saving. After I stopped supporting him, he was almost penniless. My assistant told me that he saw a watch on a second-hand platform that looked exactly like mine, and I wasn't surprised. The assistant remarked, Mr. Liu, if I didn't know you had money, I would have thought it was you selling the second-hand one. Indeed, Emily is very good at sharing resources. She gave me everything Alex has, from sports cars to the details of the cuffs. People around me noticed that he was selling second-hand items on the platform and couldn't help but tease me, asking if I was short on money. In response to these jokes, I posted a donation video on my social media. I turned all the things Emily had given me into cash and donated them to various mountainous areas. Of course, I made the donations in my own name, and as a result, I received an honorary award. After the video was released, the criticism kept increasing. People were confused. If that blogger isn't you, then who is it? How come he has things that you also have? Some limited editions can only be purchased through face recognition. I previously saw him selling that limited edition belt on a second-hand platform. There were only 2 in the entire world, and I couldn't grab one because I was too slow. I never expected that someone would actually sell it as a second-hand item now. People who are truly wealthy wouldn't do this. It really devalues the item. I wonder if that blogger stole it from somewhere. I didn't respond to those comments, but I was surprised to see that they shared my video and praised my kindness. Although I know those words are just flattery, I still found it quite gratifying. The news quickly reached Emily's ears, and she immediately approached Alex to ask him why he had done such a thing. Alex explained with a sense of grievance. Jason hates me now, and he's no longer funding me. I have no money, and there are many people at home waiting to eat. I can't let them starve. Emily, unwilling to let someone she cared about suffer financially, gave Alex some money and asked him to delete all those posts. When I checked again, the posts had already disappeared. In this circle, news spreads quickly. The fact that Emily and I broke off our engagement soon became known to everyone, and people started speculating why, despite our deep feelings for each other, we ended up calling off the engagement. When asked, I simply said that there were no feelings left. After all, being cheated on is indeed quite humiliating. However, Alex did not feel the same way. Once the news of his and Emily's broken engagement spread, he started showing up around Emily frequently, as if he were worried that others wouldn't know about their relationship. When friends brought it up, I just treated it as a joke and listened casually. That was until issues arose with the money I donated. My assistant informed me that the village I helped was Alex's hometown. Upon visiting, they discovered that Alex's house had long been dilapidated and empty. After some inquiries, I learned that Alex's family had passed away one after another when he was in his sophomore year. In the end, all the money I donated ended up going to him alone. When the assistant mentioned this, she laughed in disbelief and said, Mr. Liu, I've never seen such a deceitful person before. It really opened my eyes. Last year during the New Year, I even called his home, and someone answered. Now that I think about it, that person who answered the phone might have been someone he hired to deceive me. Just thinking about it gives me chills. His thoughts run too deep, and I can't believe I hadn't noticed all these years. Before I had fully come to terms with this reality, I heard about something else. Emily brought Alex back to the old house, but Grandpa Lin chased them out, gifts and all. Hearing this, I didn't know whether to laugh or to say serves you right. Next, I decided to focus all my energy on the company and stopped paying attention to his news. I overlooked one thing. Shameless people are fearless. Emily came to find me again, this time not to discuss a reconciliation, but to ask for my help. She said, "Jason, my grandfather likes you the most. Can you say a few good words for Alex? I promise I will repay this kindness." I found it hard to believe and asked, "You want me to speak on behalf of the mistress? How can you think like that?" She frowned and said, "Don't put it so harshly. If you don't want to hear unpleasant things, then please get out of my sight." She glanced at me and said helplessly, "Jason, do you know what your biggest difference from Alex is? His heart isn't as cold as yours. After you graduated, you went back home to take over the family business, completely leaving me behind. And I was sick. It wasn't you by my side. It was him." A hint of a smile flickered in her eyes as she mentioned Alex. At that time, he had just arrived here and didn't know his way around at all. But when he learned I was ill, he hurried back from school. He fed me my medicine, made me kanji, and he still has scars from the burns on his hands. In that moment, I realized that someone actually cared about me. This statement left me both amused and frustrated. I remember that day very clearly. I had prepared the cold medicine and kanji myself. However, when I had finished doing all of that, she had not yet woken up, so I went to the office for an emergency meeting. I didn't expect that my momentary oversight would be seized upon. However, since so much time has passed, there's no need to bring it up again. He loves you so much, so please don't let him down. I said softly. Jason is a really good person, and we've known each other for so many years. Please help him out. I smiled gently and said, "Emily, when you truly get to know him, maybe I will really help you. However, be careful not to hurt innocent people." After I said this, I left. Later, at the celebration party of Lynn Corporation, I discovered that the project manager was Emily's uncle. It turned out that Emily wanted to marry Alex, but was opposed by her entire family. Grandpa Lynn pressured her as the heir, and Emily decisively chose what she believed to be love between the heir and her beloved. When I found out about this, I almost laughed out loud. However, since I was no longer involved, I didn't dwell on it further. After Emily was kicked out of her home, Alex stopped acting. He took all the money she had and ran away. To help Emily see the truth, her family revealed to her the deceit Alex had been perpetrating over the years. Emily learned the truth and was extremely angry. She rushed to pursue the debt owed by Alex, but on the way, she was involved in a serious car accident and lost both of her legs. Meanwhile, as I found out about these events, I was embarking on a new chapter of my life.